Supersonic is evil.
Before we begin, I have both an apology to make and an explanation to give, and I may as well roll those into one. I apologise it's taken so long for part 3 of this to come out. The reason is that, well, as you've seen up to now, I really love what they did with this character. I think that Supersonic's treatment in the British comics is possibly the best way the character could have been approached, and initially, I wasn't too impressed with what comes next. In fact, I was a little disappointed with how Supersonic progresses after issue 100's events, and I was trying to find a way to put that across, and no matter how many times I wrote it, it just didn't quite seem right. The second reason that it's taken a while is that I found out I'd have the opportunity to meet Nigel Kitching and Richard Elson, who, as you know from watching the previous 2 videos, are probably my earliest artistic inspiration, probably the sole reason that I got into comic books, the only reason I've self-published, more than likely, and they did the majority of the work on Supersonic, and I have nothing but respect for them. Knowing that I'd get the chance to meet them at Western Supersonic, which was about 2 weeks ago at the time of recording this, I knew I had to get their opinion on it, get them on camera, have a chat with them, and I just thought this series wouldn't be complete if I didn't include some words from them, especially if I had the opportunity to do so. It also, from speaking with them, gave me a real fresh perspective on what happened and why following issue 100, and I've got a much better understanding now of what they were going for than I did before. So, with all that said, let's jump into this now very tattered and very well loved copy of Sonic the Comic issue 100 and pick up from where we left off. So, the black asteroid is about to explode. When it does, it will set off an electromagnetic pulse and release Supersonic from captivity. Straight away, Badniks start to malfunction and shut down as Sonic himself arrives on Mobius via the Omniviewer. The pulse even reaches as far as the floating island, conveniently knocking out Robotnik's biological computer. Amy confirms she can't find a single operational Badnik, though it doesn't appear she's looked very far. So far, this is looking very bad for Robotnik, very good for Sonic, and terrible for any hospital patient strapped to life support. There's no time to celebrate as Supersonic is here and ready for a brawl. Unfortunately, that's not quite what we get. Supersonic starts losing his powers and simply wanders off, dazed and confused. The Omniviewer explains that Supersonic has changed somehow, and is no longer able to soar energy, leaving him helpless because reasons? This, admittedly, is where I think that initial disappointment I spoke of earlier came from. No other event or brawl in the comic's entire run had this much build-up. I was excited, my friends were excited, and then we get the majority of a page in fighting. Later on in the issue, we briefly see Supersonic trying to remember who he is. Yeah, they pulled the amnesia card. A kindly old lady takes pity on him and invites him into her home. 2 issues later, we see Supersonic is having nightmares about a golden beast destroying all life on Mobius. It quickly becomes apparent he's living with the elderly lady we saw in issue 100. Her husband clearly isn't too happy with the arrangement though, and I have to say I find it odd he's reading a newspaper that states Supersonic is missing on the front page. What, the paper didn't have a photo? There's a golden version of Sonic in your spare room right now. Surely even the description from the paper would be enough. Supersonic overhears the argument and decides to leave. He wants to find out who he is and figures he can't do that by staying under the couple's roof. As he leaves, we briefly see Johnny and Amy. They're tracking Supersonic's energy signature and it's brought them here. They comment that the signal is too weak to narrow Supersonic's location down any further, as he literally walks behind them. They must be blind. Johnny gives up easily, as per usual, and decides he wants lunch. At the very least, this serves to let us know that Supersonic is being hunted and clearly doesn't remember the freedom fighters if he's able to walk straight past them. It would be another 14 issues before we saw Supersonic again. Now, this comic released fortnightly, so that means he was absent for 28 weeks, over half a year. That's a very long time, especially when you're a 9-10-year-old child. Now, I would have forgiven anyone who thought that him walking off trying to find himself in issue 102 was the last we'd see of the character, given that gap. And I think the gap would have been appropriate if we'd had the big dramatic showdown that we were expecting in issue 100. As it stands, we didn't get that showdown, so really the gap only served to make us think that the character had been completely forgotten about.
A black cat named Ebony is in her bar, trying to calm down her friend Pyjamas. Pyjamas is saying that he, she, it... I'm gonna go with she. Feels like a she. Feels a being of incredible power will soon be upon them. Right as she says this, Supersonic walks through the door. This is our second hint that his evil side is still in there somewhere. Meanwhile, back in the Special Zone, Lord Sidewinder starts talking about how he still wants to harness Supersonic's powers, and has sent one of his men, Biohazard, to the bar. Yep, apparently Lord Sidewinder was able to get a rough fix on Supersonic's location from another dimension when Amy and Johnny couldn't pinpoint the guy when he was right behind them. Good going, guys. Good going. Pyjamas is still freaking out over how dangerous Supersonic is, but she isn't being listened to. Seriously, Supersonic was kind of a big deal. How does no one recognize him? Supersonic asks if Ebony has any job openings, but is interrupted by Biohazard's arrival. Part 2 starts with Biohazard shouting out Supersonic's name. The comic claims Ebony and Pyjamas can't hear him over the commotion, but I'm not sure I buy that. Ebony jumps in to fight Biohazard. During this, he tells Super that Lord Sidewinder demands his presence. Supersonic seems to have a faint recollection of the name. Ebony uses a spell to make Biohazard see multiple Supersonics so they can all escape. We cut to Lord Sidewinder, who asks why Biohazard hasn't just grabbed him yet, considering they're within a few feet of each other.
He can narrow Supersonic's location down to a few feet on a tracker he's using from another dimension. Seriously, this guy's tech. Wow.
Outside the bar, Ebony suggests that Pyjamas use a mind link power to try and access Super's lost memories, which she reluctantly starts to do. We open part 3 with Pyjamas getting the shock of her life as the mind link shows her Supersonic's true nature. This also causes Super to remember who he is too, and even Ebony finally clicks. Supersonic has a brief conversation with Biohazard where Sidewinder's plans are revealed. Pyjamas implores him to take out Biohazard, but Super is scared that using his powers will bring back his urges for destruction.
The situation essentially resolves itself when Sidewinder's lair in the Special Zone is raided by the police there, and Biohazard is teleported back. It's all a matter of convenience, and really it's anticlimactic.
Afterwards, Supersonic considers turning himself in. Pyjamas is impressed with the control he displayed and is confident he has no intention of using his powers again, convincing him to stay. Ebony even gives him that job he was looking for. It seems to be a happy ending and a new start for one of Sonic's most dangerous foes. That is until issue 146. Yep, 28 issues and more than a year later. Supersonic is returning home after grocery shopping with Ebony and Pyjamas. Here, Pyjamas clarifies that people don't know what Supersonic looks like, as hard as that is to believe, so they should avoid using his real name in public. Super confirms he's had some funny looks from people, but he thinks they don't recognize him because he doesn't crackle with energy anymore. Yeah. Just then, an overhead train derails. Supersonic uses his powers and catches the train carriage in mid-air. Just as Ebony's congratulating him, a bystander comments on how Supersonic looks like, well, Supersonic, despite Pyjamas clearly saying no one knows what he looks like just 2 pages earlier. Everyone's worried that using his powers might bring back Super's destructive urges, but he assures them he's fine. That lasts all of 10 seconds, and before we know it, the rampaging golden beast is back. Apparently, this causes an energy spike which the Kinterball computer picks up on and informs Sonic of. It looks like we're finally going to get our showdown between the two. Supersonic starts showing off the full depth of his monstrous powers, burrowing into the core of the planet and pulling up lava. Not content with that, he heads for the moon and slams that into the planet for good measure. Of course, this would all be very hard to turn back from, and it's soon revealed that Ebony in Pajamas are psychically containing Supersonic, allowing him to think he's on a rampage, when in reality he's stood in the middle of a town. Pajamas erases Supersonic's most recent memories. He forgets the darkness took hold and returns to normal. Just then, Sonic turns up with a tracking device of his own. Ebony and Pajamas are able to hide Supersonic, but Sonic still questions them. He almost finds his evil counterpart, but after a cat jumps out of where he thinks Super is hiding, he blames the whole thing on his tracker malfunctioning and leaves. Ebony then claims she cast a spell over the tracker, but it was quite clearly the cat that saved everyone. Super again suggests turning himself in, but his friends won't hear of it, despite it being a really good idea considering what just happened.
You thought there were long gaps between appearances before? After issue 148, we don't see Supersonic again until issue 183. Now, there are some background details that you're going to need before we go into this next bit. Issue 183 is near the end of the comic's loose adaptation of Sonic Adventure 1 on the Dreamcast. So, right now, the characters are up against perfect chaos, and things are looking pretty hopeless. Time to enter Supersonic.
Supersonic arrives at the battle looking old and frail. Sonic is naturally not too happy to see him. Supersonic doesn't expect anyone to believe he's not the demon he used to be, which is fair enough. They've all seen what he's capable of and haven't witnessed his change in behaviour. Ebony explains that Supersonic is dying. He's made of chaos energy and he's running out of it. They came here because they sensed a large concentration of the energy and hoped it might be enough to save him. Sonic refuses to let Super anywhere near Chaos, but he's already too late as Super's gone and jumped into the monster. Supersonic absorbs Chaos, leaving only a fish behind.
He's a fish because Chaos is a dragon in the comics, and in the comic universe a dragon is... well, we'll do that in a different video at another time because that could be a long story.
He immediately turns violent and attacks Sonic's group. Sonic decides to take Super head-on while Ebony casts a spell. The two grapple and Sonic vanishes. It looks like Sonic has lost until Supersonic starts transforming back into regular Sonic. Ebony was able to combine them back into the shared being they were before. Tails quite wisely and appropriately asks what happens the next time Sonic is under pressure and transforms. You know, like the old days. Sonic pretty much fobs him off by saying he doesn't know, but he's sure things will work themselves out.
And that's it! No, seriously, that was the last story the comic ever did. There were issues released after that, but those issues consisted entirely of reprints of stories from earlier issues. I'm not sure why they made that decision, but that's the way it went. So Supersonic went from being a massive threat to being an amnesiac, to then knowing about his powers but deciding not to use them, to then being a massive maniacal threat again right at the very end. I wonder what they would have done with him if they'd continued. So, if they'd have gone into an adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2, or if, just generally speaking, there had been more issues. Originally, as I've said a number of times throughout this video, I was really just absolutely disappointed with the entire Amnesia arc. He had so much character and focus and development all the way up to issue 100, then suddenly it's gone. Just like that. And that never sat right with me. For years I thought, what a waste. That was until I spoke to Nigel Kitching and Richard Elson recently. Let's hear what they have to say about Supersonic's journey from issue 100 through to the end of the comic's life.
It's a long time ago. I just remember thinking it'd be interesting to have a vicious killer not be a vicious killer, and how much blame do you attach to somebody who's had a genuine personality change? He was genuinely a new character, he was innocent. So how much blame do you attach to a character based on past actions they are responsible for? Those are the ideas I was thinking about.
Wasn't those sort of a long game as well? It made the final story where he re-emerged much more dynamic. because he'd been sort of like low-key leading up to that for quite a while, hadn't he?
So it's a big, oh no, he's back. Yeah.
I played the tension thing with the Pyjamas and Ebony.
Ebony, yeah.
Ebony wholeheartedly believed the Supersonic is staying good.
Yeah.
She would risk the entire planet on her belief in his goodness.
Yeah.
Whereas Pyjamas is rather scared of what may happen.
Right.
I like that kind of tension about supporting people who, I don't know.
So it's about second chances.
So yeah.
Redemption's your...
I love a bit of
redemption story. Extremely powerful characters are the hardest to write as well, aren't they? Because you've got to come up with more and more
elaborate ways to stop them. Yeah.
To rein them in.
Like the Dragon Ball problem. Goku kept getting more and more powerful, and
Superman's the hardest character to write because he can do anything.
yeah.
Who do you put up against him? Supersonic's a bit like that. He's so powerful compared to the...
But yeah, you sort of had to, in the end, you got to say, right, let's strip that away and...
Take him down a few pegs.
Yeah.
It's really hard for how you have people escape from him without diminishing his power.
Yeah.
You've got to find tricks and things to get people away from his... You know he will kill you. There's no doubt about what he intends to do.
To maintain that veneer of viciousness about him as well, which is difficult to do without...
I quite liked how you made him smarter as well throughout the series. He starts sort of just snarls and grunts, and then by Doomsday he's sort of starting to make deals and plans and...
That never occurred to me until you said it.
Yeah?
So, that's just the...
Follows exactly the same trajectory as before.
Yeah, he gets smarter.
I mean, when we split up Sonic and Supersonic, that was Richard's idea, and it was just because we were doing something in the hope we once enjoyed back in the 70s.
So there we have it. They were aiming for a redemption story, and they were also finding him difficult to write because he was overpowered. So they stripped away the powers so that he no longer had the Superman/Goku problem anymore, and they didn't have to keep coming up with more and more convoluted ways to deal with him, and just eliminate that power creep. Then they said, okay, we've got this character, he's done terrible things, he's not that person anymore. For a while he didn't even have memories of what he'd done. When he did get his memories, he said, well, that's not me these days. I'm going to make a conscious decision not to use my powers so that I don't put anyone else in danger, which shows a positive change in attitude and its growth in the character. Now, in hindsight, I get their redemption story. I get that they were trying to say, can you really blame him for what he did before? Is he that person anymore? And would it be right to put him on trial for those deeds? And I would argue, no, it probably isn't right to do that. Even if, you know, at the end when he does rejoin with normal Sonic, he goes straight back to his old habits. Now, all of that said, that didn't come across to me the first time I read it. In fact, for years, and probably up until the point that I spoke to Nigel and Richard at Western Supersonic, I didn't get that. So I believe they had a strong concept, but I feel the execution just didn't portray the ideas strongly enough for me to get it. Now, that could have also been the fact that I was a 10-year-old child at the time these comics came out, and now I'm a 25-year-old man, and my understanding of the world and political issues and all the rest of it go a lot deeper than they used to. With regards to Sonic the comic as a whole, there are a lot of things that I just have not covered yet, which I could go on to cover. We barely scratched the surface of Brutus in this little Supersonic trilogy. Likewise, we haven't really looked at the adaptions of the Sonic games, so there are adaptions of Sonic 1, 2, 3, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic 3D Flicky's Island, and we briefly looked at the ending of their Sonic Adventure arc, so those are definitely things we can look at. There are unique characters that only ever appear in the comic universe, so things like Short Fuse, we've got Techno, and there's just a whole host of people there that we could go and look into. There will be a break in Sonic the Comic videos. This series is called Video Game Comics, so although Sonic the Comic was a huge part of my childhood and I'll always have a lot of respect and nostalgia for it, next time around we will be looking at a different comic based on a video game. So those of you who aren't Sonic fans, you can breathe a sigh of relief now, because we will be moving on. In the meantime, if you want to support what I do generally in a more direct way, there are a couple of avenues you can do that through. I publish my own comics, and that's off my own back, so sort of overdraft and credit card debt to print them. And those are available. There's Arcadia, which is a one-shot, and there's Joe Cape, which is an ongoing short series. You can get physical copies at UK On Display, and you can get digital copies through Comixology. Links to both of those will be in the description below. Alternatively, I've recently joined a site called TeePublic, where basically you design t-shirts and you upload those designs and people can then buy t-shirts with that design printed on them. So that link will also be in the description, so you've got those options available. Alternatively, you can support me without spending any money, simply by liking this video, commenting on it, and subscribing. So those are all options open to you as well. I hope to see you again as soon as possible. I apologise, my upload schedule is irregular, but day job, kids, other half, etc. they do admittedly get in the way on occasion. Thank you very much for watching.